Well, hello there, and welcome to Slooh, Space for Everyone. I'm Jerry Monteur, your host and expedition leader here, as we bring you the brightest object in the night sky, and that, of course, would be the full moon. We were hoping to get a live look at the full moon tonight through our telescopes in the Canary Islands and Chile, but it seems Mother Nature had other ideas. We are fighting some clouds and some very high humidity, so in order to keep our telescopes in good working order for our community to use, we're going to keep things closed up tight. And that community is helping us out. They've been capturing images of the moon from our live telescopic feeds for years now. And we'll be taking a look at some of the best tonight, as you can see right here. We'll have images from our wide field, ultra wide field, and half-meter telescopes in the Canary Islands, as well as our high magnification telescope in Chile. Now, all of these telescopes, I'm going to remind you, are available for Slooh members to schedule every night. So if you haven't gotten enough of the moon during our live show, or if you want to look at something else that's captured your imagination, you can come over to Slooh, sign up, and put our telescopes to work for you. And now the full moon is important to a lot of cultures around the world. To the Native Americans, this particular moon is known as the full flower moon, because this was and is the time of the year when plants are in bloom and everything is reborn. But did you know the May full moon is of particular importance to Buddhists? That's right. Today, Buddhists worldwide are celebrating the festival of Vesak. And coming up on the show, we'll be talking with the Reverend Dr. T.K. Nakagaki, the president of the Buddhist Council of New York, to learn more about the holiday and what it has to do with the full moon. We'll also get a visit from Slooh's human spirit editor, Helen Avery, who will talk about a very special location in Tibet where this holiday is celebrated. But coming up next, first here on the show, astronomy journalist and author Bob Berman will be kicking things off as he helps us get to know our nearest neighbor just a little bit better. So please stay with us. We've been all over the world chasing solar eclipses to share with you. This time, you're coming with us. Join Slooh as we expedition to Stanley, Idaho to celebrate the transcontinental eclipse on August 21st. Sign up today at slooh.com. Space is limited. And we welcome you back to Slooh and our celebration of Buddha Day and Vesak and the May full moon here. We're going to get to the Buddhist celebration in just a moment, but right now, let's get to know our closest neighbor in the night sky just a bit better. And for that, we turn to our friend, Slooh favorite astronomy journalist and author, Bob Berman. Bob, thanks a million for joining us tonight. I got a basic question to start out with. Why do we have a full moon every month?
Well, first of all, hi, Jerry. Great to be here, and nice to see you. And well, the moon in its orbit around Earth, every serious lunar fanatic certainly has memorized the number 27.32166. That number that we all know is how many days it takes the moon to go around Earth. So since it goes around us, there's going to be one night when it's in the opposite direction from the sun. That's tonight. When it's opposite from the sun, that means from our perspective, it's fully lit up and becomes round. And since the circle was prized and revered as sacred for many, many cultures throughout history, that started it off. Of course, it doesn't hurt that we only have one moon. If we had a bunch of them, each one might get lost in the shuffle, but we're the only planet with one moon, so that helps too.
I mentioned before that this is a special moon. We have full moons every month, but this one's pretty special to a lot of people around the world. What makes it so?
Well, to my mind, it's special because it's the second highest moon of the year. It gets up, you'll see it later tonight at around midnight local time. It'll be not straight up, it won't be straight up from anywhere in the United States. It will be straight up from Hawaii, by the way, but not anywhere else, not from the mainland US, not from anywhere in Canada, not from anywhere in Europe, but second highest moon of the year. So that makes it special. And many cultures regard it special because it's the full moon when the plants are underway. And as you say, it's connected with Buddhism. So, hey, there it is. And the moon is the only object in the night sky that everyone can recognize. If you think I'm exaggerating, ask your friends and family, ask your grandma, what's that? And point to the brightest stars or point to Jupiter, point to anything. And most people will say, I don't know, but everyone knows the moon. So it's familiar. And the full moon is the one familiar phase, one familiar shape. Point to a gibbous moon, football-shaped moon, the way it'll be next week, and most people won't be able to identify it. But full moon, everyone knows it. So it's familiar. It's beloved.
Well, you spoke of the Buddhists and cultures around the world and so forth. From a religious standpoint, Bob, what do you think? Why do you think the moon has been so important?
Oh, this is great. This is proof, folks, that Jerry and I don't rehearse these things ahead of time. From from a religious standpoint, why would the moon be so important? Well, I know in India, it's Chandra and the sun is Surya, and each one is a god. And many cultures, especially in the olden days, lights were especially the thing that helped us out. The celestial objects that we couldn't touch; they were uncorruptible. That means the sun, the moon, the stars. Secondly, the objects that were perfectly round. There's only two. We only have two circles in our sky: the sun and the moon. And so, of course, these are sacred and figure into ancient religions. Maybe that's the reason why there are still holidays that are held at the full moon. That is in the Muslim religion and in the Jewish religion and in the Christian religion. Easter and Passover, these are set not for a particular date, but for the full moon of that time of the year.
Well, I'm not sure if you're aware of this, Bob, but we had a production meeting the other day to talk about the full moon, and we have pretty much decided we're going to do something every month based on the full moon itself. And my thought was, why don't we do a show on lunacy?
That's a great idea. And the word, of course, lunacy clearly comes from the moon, lunar and lunacy, lunatic. But all studies looking for connections have failed to find them. There's a whole bag of literature. I know this because I've written some articles about it that show that admissions to mental hospitals, calls to crisis centers, reports from people in the field of mental illness show there is no connection between a full moon and going crazy. But we do understand why it seems that way. There's a clear answer why it seems that way, and that we can answer.
All right. Well, we're looking forward to that, and I certainly hope our producers take me seriously. Bob, what do you think about when you look up at the moon? And have those thoughts changed over the years?
Well, the first thought as an astronomer is that it's annoying and I wish it weren't there, because the full moon is so bright that we can't see the rest of the universe very well. Secondly, it's the only phase where the craters and the mountains disappear. We saw that a moment ago when we were looking at our Slooh close-up views of the moon. When we look at them, I challenge anybody to go ahead, look and see if you can see a single crater or a single mountain range, all the cool, juicy detail that the moon shows off when it's a half moon or a gibbous moon or a fat crescent moon, gone, absolutely gone. And in its place are those albedo features, those blotches, which the ancients mistakenly called seas. They thought they were oceans. So, and they named them, all of them had names after either weather phenomena or human emotions. So obviously they have nothing to do with human emotions, and they're not seas. So we're looking at kind of wrong beep. We're looking at wrong stuff. We've lost all the lunar detail, and instead all we're seeing are blotches, flat, smooth blotches. If you didn't know better, you'd think the moon was just a flat, blotchy thing. The Greeks, boy, they had a field day with it. They thought that the full moon looked like it was so flat that it was painted onto the sky because it doesn't look like a ball. You know, all of our listeners who are artists or have taken classes in art know that when you're representing a ball, you need shading. There's a way to make it look three-dimensional. You make the edges a little dimmer, or if the light's coming from one side, you emphasize that. The moon is the only celestial object that doesn't do that. Look at it. It doesn't look like the center is closer to you, does it? It doesn't look like a three-dimensional ball. It looks flat as a dish, as a dinner plate. And the ancient Greeks noticed this and said, why? There's nothing else on Earth that is a ball that has that flat painted on experience. So when I look at that, I think of that illusion too. And then speaking of illusions, we get the moon illusion. Every time the moon is rising or setting when it's low, it looks enormous. And when it gets higher in the sky, it looks much, much smaller. So I'm more struck by the oddities, the illusions, the strangenesses of the full moon, frankly.
All right, Bob. And finally, when you look up at the full moon or the moon in any phase, do you wish you could go there, or have you ever wished that, or is that ship sailed?
No. These are brave people, the astronauts who would go there. You know, you're going to a place without any air, with like high radiation, where the daytime temperatures could boil water and the nighttime temperatures are 250 or so below zero. This is a lethal place. And so, you know, I'm not afraid of getting off the Earth's surface. You know, I'm a pilot and an airplane owner, but I'm not brave enough. These people, the 12 men who walked on the moon or hopped on the moon, boy, it takes courage to do that, knowing that just beyond your spacesuit, just beyond the lunar lander, is death. So, you know, I'm glad we did it, but not a place for cowards, certainly.
Yeah, I got to know Pete Conrad a little bit years ago when he was alive, and you know what, I said basically the same thing to him. I said, thankfully there are people like you, so that people like me don't have to go there. Hey, Bob, thanks a million. Appreciate the 411, my friend.
A pleasure, Jerry. Thanks.
All right, coming up today marks the celebration of the Buddhist holiday known as Vesak. But what does the moon have to do with it? I got the chance to sit down with Reverend TK of the Buddhist Council of New York to find out, so stick around. Give the gift of the universe. Give the gift of Slooh. A celebration of every magical moment in the night sky. For just $60, you can give the budding space explorer in your life the gift of a full year of Slooh membership. It's available now at slooh.com. Hey there, and welcome back to our celebration of the full moon here on Slooh. I'm Jerry Montour. As we said at the top of the show, we're also celebrating the Buddhist festival known as Vesak. But what exactly is the holiday all about? What does it have to do with the moon? Earlier this week, I got the chance to sit down with Reverend Dr. TK Nakagaki, president of the Buddhist Council of New York, to find out why the holiday means so much to Buddhists and why the moon plays such an important role. Now, I know you prefer to be called Reverend TK. So, Reverend TK, thanks for joining us. Why is the full moon or any moon important to Buddhists?
Yes. How are you? First of all, the moon itself represents full moon, especially is a fully enlightened. Nothing is missing. So Buddha's birth is perfect, right? Buddha's enlightenment is perfect, and then Buddha's what do you call it? Passing away is also perfect. We call it parinirvana, but so that's why the full moon itself is really represent the nothing missing, everything is full. So whatever you need is right there, and a completion of the truth.
And can you explain what Vesak Day is all about?
Vesak Day basically celebrate the Buddha's birthday and Buddha's enlightenment and Buddha's passing away. And so we are celebrating all three events together on a full moon day of May. And this year is Vesak will be May 10th.
So, in terms of rituals or ceremonies, do Buddhists celebrate specific rituals or ceremonies during Vesak Day? And if so, what are they?
It all depends on the tradition of Buddhism. There are many different traditions of Buddhism, like one of the big one, of course, Theravada tradition, Mahayana tradition, and each country is sort of celebrate differently too. So, but in Theravada country or other countries too, but of course, important part is to show respect the Buddha's life, Buddha or the teaching. So we call Dharma. And at the same time, precepts. Observing the precepts is another part of the Vesak as well. And sometimes in a Mahayana country, like a Chinese, Japanese, Korea, we have more like towards the baby Buddha, and then put the, what do you call it, sweet tea on the top of the little Buddha. So slightly different way of celebrating. Other places have a parade and the chantings and meditations, and most important part is that all the celebration leads to the practice of the Dharma or the teaching, and so that's a great time to really what do you call it? Show our respect to the Buddha as well as confirming your own practice.
So I understand that Buddhists all over the world celebrate in different ways, but do all Buddhists celebrate?
Yes, basically. A slightly different time, because sometimes, like myself is from Japan, and Japanese calendar, we changed to sort of like April 8th. But yeah, because fourth month of the, full moon day happened to be the April 8th that we sort of set in a Japanese tradition. But other countries, basically the full moon in May, but slightly different of the dates.
So what about you in particular, Reverend? Any special plans for Vesak Day?
I'm actually president of the Buddhist Council New York. So Buddhist Council has our own Vesak, but sometimes, everybody try to do the same time or this year, May 10th. So Buddhist Council Vesak is something, it's not exact day, but it's closer to those days. And so, but we try to bring all the different traditional Buddhism together, and then celebrate this auspicious occasion of the Buddha's birth, enlightenment, and parinirvana.
Well, it sounds like you've got your work cut out for you, Reverend.
Yes, and at the same time, since it's New York, we have a United Nations nearby. Actually, that's in Manhattan, right? So we do have a International Day of Vesak at the United Nations, and that's actually actual date on May 10th this year. So Wednesday, we do have this kind of offering of the dana to the monks. And then in the evening, we do have a celebration, and then we have some different community show their respect, and then we have including some talks from the different countries and representatives. So those are some plan, and so it will be a busy time for us.
Yeah, no kidding. Well, Reverend, I know you've got a lot of work to do, but thank you so much for joining us here today,
Thank
and
you so
happy Vesak Day.
Yeah, thank you.
All
So
right.
yeah, I hope this Vesak will be recognized, not only the United Nations recognized, but yet in this country, America, there are many agents now, but yet the Vesak has not been recognized. No school holidays, anything like that. So that's what we are working on that too. I
Oh,
just
okay. Well, good luck in that regard, and may
yeah,
it
thank you so
happen
much.
someday for your
Yeah,
family.
yeah. So thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Again, that was earlier this week, and a huge thank you to Reverend TK for taking time to speak with me. He is, of course, spending the day celebrating Vesak with the Buddhists of New York. Elsewhere in the world, there are plenty of other celebrations going on in honor of Buddha. Coming up, Slooh's Human Spirit editor Helen Avery joins me to talk about one very special event in Tibet. Stay tuned. We've been all over the world chasing solar eclipses to share with you. This time, you're coming with us. Join Slooh as we expedition to Stanley, Idaho to celebrate the transcontinental eclipse on August 21st. Sign up today at slooh.com. Space is limited. And welcome back to our celebration of the full moon here on Slooh. Earlier in the show, we hope you saw as we sat down with Reverend TK of the Buddhist Council of New York to explore the festival called Vesak. This holiday is celebrated by Buddhists worldwide, but there is one particular spot in Tibet that's especially important. Here to tell us all about it is Slooh's Human Spirit editor, Helen Avery. Helen, thanks for joining us. There's a legend of what happens in the Vesak Valley in Tibet on this particular day. What is that?
That's right, and it's fascinating. It's like as good as legends of any of the constellations and those myths. So the legend is that in the west of Tibet, on the border in the Himalayas, there is what's called the Vesak Valley, and it's like a mysterious hidden valley. And it's said that on this particular full moon, that a great light appears in this valley, and in the middle of that light is Buddha every year. That's the legend.
Okay, so I gather it's not a legend, or is it?
Well, this is the amazing thing. So this is the Vesak Valley you can see here, and Australian filmmaker Albie Falzon lent us these lovely pictures because he set out to show to the West that it wasn't just a legend. After all, a group of people got together in the early 80s, Albert Falzon and a few others, and said, let's let the West know whether this is a legend or not. And so they made this trip in 1985, and it was like the worst snow on record at that particular time. And they and here are these just amazing photographs. So they made their way. It took 2 weeks to get across these almost like lunar landscapes, very, very isolated landscapes, and happened to meet on the way a Buddhist Lama, so it's like a priest, who happened to be going to the Vesak festival in the Vesak Valley. And so they went along with him. So we're just seeing some pictures here that he kindly shared with us. So as you can see this, so and he sort of describes it that all these pilgrims came out of the middle of nowhere, really, sort of trains and trains of pilgrims that make their way as the moon is coming the few days before, and they all gather in the middle of this valley to await this moment. And there's chanting and there's instruments being played. And if you can see the gentlemen here in the red hats, they're called Red Hat Buddhists, the Red Hat sect. So there's a lot of holy men who are there to help to help Buddha's consciousness come down onto the earth. So it's said that today, and there they are with their instruments, and that when the full moon occurs, the energy of Buddha comes down into the world. And the other thing that's said is that Buddha and Christ were the same. So Buddha was for the East and Christ was for the West. So it's also said that today, it's not just Buddha's energy, that sort of Buddha's love that comes down and fills the world for peace for all of humanity, but also Christ's. So it wasn't a legend, as Albie Falzon proved, because they went and they sort of took some pictures, and they also did a documentary on it, which is a very interesting sort of grainy film of some of the things that there. Obviously, it's a very, very holy place, so they didn't take a lot of footage because it would have been disrespectful, but we managed to get these amazing pictures.
So they observed a lot. What was it they found?
Well, he's quite vague, and I did manage to have a quick chat with him, and he wasn't available to come today because he's out riding the cosmic wave. So I think it was very transformational. So as I mentioned, there are lots of these pilgrims, like hundreds and hundreds of people. They said they just don't know where they came from to this valley, which he probably wouldn't find again, to be honest. And here, some of the lamas, you can tell because of what they're wearing, the Buddhist monks. And as I mentioned, sort of lots of chanting and reading of prayers to sort of help this Buddhist energy come down. And the people who went, so Albie Falzon and a few others who went to do this documentary, said that it was like at the moment of the full moon, there was a very big sort of vibrational shift, and they could feel the energy, and said it was absolutely indescribable. They couldn't even put it into words, just that it was like life altering. So a really, really special day if you want to tune in and see if you can feel Buddha.
That would be cool. And it sounds to me, Helen, like you were pretty impressed. You weren't even there and you were impressed.
I know, because it's, we talk so much on Slooh about like myths and legends as if they're gone, that we can't do them. And this for me is like living legend. Like we could actually do this today. You could go on a trek through the Himalayas and this lunar landscape and meet these incredible people, almost like you're on Star Wars, but it's real and this is happening. And as you mentioned earlier, all around the world on full moons, amazing, interesting, fascinating things are happening that maybe we're not aware of. But what an adventure to go, and you don't have to get in a rocket. So you'll be all right if you're scared of going to the moon. You and Bob, all right, you can just go to the Himalayas. Although I gather it was really, really treacherous, and they were lucky to get there. Although it obviously looks like a beautiful day once they were there, thanks to Buddha, probably.
There you go. And as you mentioned, it's like a lunar landscape too. So, hey, Helen, thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for the information. It was good stuff. Happy Vesak. There are a lot of amazing rituals and ceremonies that happen around the world on full moons, and we certainly hope to be bringing more of those to you each month. So stay with us here on Slooh. And that about wraps it up for us here today. Dawn starting to break in the Canary Islands. And thank you so much for joining us for this year's celebration of Buddha Day on this May full moon. Thanks, of course, to our very special guests, Helen Avery, Bob Berman, and Reverend TK. You can join us on keeping an eye on all things happening in space, from meteor showers and comets to the sun, moon, and planets, by making a reservation on our telescopes in the Canary Islands and Chile. Any paying member can reserve time on all of our telescopes, looking live at stars and planets and galaxies and nebulae and all manner of celestial objects. And members also get the opportunity to watch all our featured content here in the Space Situation Room. We do this all the time here at Slooh, and coming up, there are plenty of chances to tune in for some great shows. A little later this month, we'll be celebrating the dark skies and all the magic they bring and opportunities as well. And we'll be talking about light pollution and speaking with people who live in protected dark sky communities to find out how life is different when you grow up under the stars. And of course, we're constantly pointing our telescopes at the most interesting things in the night sky and streaming them live in the Situation Room. Tune in nearly every day for a different object or view accompanied by music and fascinating facts. Tomorrow night, we'll be watching Jupiter and its cosmic dance with its many moons with a live look at the sun on Friday. That's all coming up here on Slooh, so join the community, interact with other members, and tune in, please. But for now, I'm Jerry Montour. Thanks for stopping by. You've been watching Slooh, Space for Everyone.